show where we chart the development of key teams and bots from the course of this wonderful show that we all love. Speaking about robots that we all love, we've got a bit of a special today with Chromalot. And of course, when we have a special bot, we need the most special of guests. And that is going to be a new one today, in the form of a guy we will simply call Jack.
Hello, fellas. And then there's me.
And this guy's here, you know.
It's like, it's my own flat, and Nick's just come up for a visit, and we thought, well...
Might as well.
Podcast makes sense.
Yeah.
So, Chromalot, lads... Yeah, 10 out of 10 emoji.
Yeah, of all the robots,
100.
We go for this.
Double underlined. So, I guess we should get straight into the robot's design then, because it pretty much keeps the same form throughout the entirety of Robot Wars.
Yes,
all that ever changes is the weapon.
Yeah, if you wanted to go for a base of what Chromalot is all about, as Jonathan Pierce consistently says, the American truck wheel hub is the foundation of Chromalot as a whole.
As opposed to Corkscrew, who would be a Scottish wheel hub.
Yes, exactly. Key differences there. Both circular.
And Spin Doctor, who would be a wheel hub.
A something.
From the Canary Islands.
Yeah. So, the team, the Hub Nuts, as they are called.
But more commonly known as the Class Act.
Yes. A bit more suitable for work, shall we say.
Classy.
Yeah. They had a few team members, actually. Steve Merrill, as we all know. Ray Tate. And then we had Steve Smith and Dave Whitehead from Series 3 to Series 4 as well, in Whitehead's case.
Like, don't treat Ray Tate as a mainstay. He was busy winning with the seeded Centurion Series 3 to 4 before he was enlisted.
Yeah, and then we've got Louise Merrill in Series 6.
The mysterious Merrill. Isn't she like a kid?
I don't know.
But it says Louis.
I don't ever remember seeing Louise's Merrill, to be honest.
Well, clearly we needed to rewatch Series 6 then.
We did. Well, I apologise for that, lads. Not much information you're getting from this podcast, but that was the whole idea. So before we embarrass ourselves anymore, let's go on to something that's going to embarrass us even more, because Chromalot's first ever fight is against Shell Shock, because of course it's against Shell Shock in the first round of Series 3.
I think there's only one way we can summarise this, isn't there, Nick?
I think there might well be.
Well, you ready, Jack? 3, 2, 1. A snail's pace is fast enough for me. A snail's pace, there's plenty of things to see. It doesn't matter if the road is smooth or rough. A snail's pace is fast enough.
You can tell our big Shell Shock fan, Isaac Toast, should I call him, put in the most passion there for Shell Shock.
I have to make it sound like I am really Robert Brown.
Yeah, you're doing a good job, mate. So, this fight itself, you have all seen it recently, actually, because the whole other fight featured in a recent turd.
Recent. Second most recent, we can call it.
So, the whole thing is basically Chromalot piercing Shell Shock and dragging it around the arena. Not the most impressive fight on the face of things, but I'd like to give Chromalot a little bit of a shout out here. I think it's one of the more dominant round 1 wins, actually.
Yeah, one of the most dominant wins that Chromalot has ever achieved.
Yeah.
Straight away, back when the spike was their primary weapon, that was only really the case for Series 3. It was a prominent part in Series 4, but not the primary weapon in their own words. But it punched through that fiberglass shell of the 60-odd kilogram machine.
Was it really that light?
Until something went a bit wrong. Why don't we pass over to Jack for that?
Well, basically, So Chromalot got a little bit too close to the house robots, and in one of probably the biggest non-controversies in perhaps Series 3, perhaps ever, who knows. But it got through regardless. It was pitted, and Craig didn't agree with it, but that's the way it was. And we never saw the Shell Shock team again. So...
Are you sure about that? Does he... What's this unbridled hatred for Fatboy Tin?
Yeah.
Oh my god, I completely forgot.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
Wait, no, we've got it wrong. No, it's the other Shell Shock that was from the Fatboy Tin
Oh my
team.
god.
That was on
Actually,
my... Sorry, lads. That was on me.
Yeah. Shell Shock was a one and done, but not that Shell Shock. This Shell Shock.
Not related. Let's just put that in there.
Wow. Yeah, in terms of embarrassing ourselves, this is a good start. So,
Oh, I was meant to be the big old fan of that fight.
yeah,
I thought I was going to be the embarrassing one.
yeah. So, anyway,
Speaking of embarrassing, Big Brother. Anybody been watching that?
yeah,
I was.
and speaking about embarrassing before the fight with the Channel 5 / former Channel 4 reality TV show, the class act started dancing in the arena.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on the dance moves there, guys?
Well, as somebody who has represented Howden School on a national dancing stage where I made it out of the heats and into the grand final of the Yorkshire block at Grimsby,
All right,
I
Ripper.
could say that the dancing is somewhat comparable to my own.
Is that a compliment?
It's
Not a compliment.
It's interpretable.
I'll let you guys listening interpret that.
What would Tale of the Toaster's signature dance move be? What a bad question.
Yeah, any ideas, comment them below. I don't think we'll get many. So, the fight with Big Brother itself was...
Prompt?
Yeah, it was basically Roadblock. A couple of years later, a thing rode up a wedge that couldn't self-right and fell over. And
Sir Chromalot's on the run! It's piggyback time! They're in and underneath Sir Chromalot! We're ready for the big flip! They're gonna flip him! Nah, it's all over! Big Brother the winner!
now you got the syllable count still there.
If somebody just described the fight to you without you actually watching it, you would think it was something straight out of Series 1.
Yeah, absolutely. But, so, that sadly brings an immediate end to Sir Chromalot in Series 3. But as I said, I think Sir Chromalot's pretty decent for a Series 3 robot.
Yeah, but you could also say that the producers kind of agreed, which is why they gave
Yes.
it a completely open heat, one of the easiest
True.
possible in Series 3.
But at the same time, Big Brother was one of the worst machines it could face. I think it could hold its own against a good amount of non-steep wedges.
Is this Sir Chromalot versus the entirety of Series 3 getting started here?
Maybe. So, do we want to do it versus the semi-finalists? A round 2 loser.
No?
Moving on. So Chromalot came back in Series 4. It basically tripled its height by adding the Eiffel Tower on top of it.
Excuse me, Eiffel Tower is a copyrighted product, and so we have to refer to it as a famous landmark.
Yes, we'll do that. So the famous landmark is gonna be a Shremek. It's gonna land on its side, according to Steve Merrill, and when it does, it's gonna push itself back over with these poles that push out from the big pole of the famous landmark. Didn't get much of a chance to show that in its first fight against Reactor.
It was certainly given a chance. It did fight a
Yes.
flipper, but it's probably better that it didn't get flipped.
Yeah.
You would think.
If not, the loser of this fight would have had another UK championship battle. It was Reactor in there, as well as the loser, Scorpion.
Now, of course, Sir Chromalot has made one modification aside from its new self-righting tower. That's their new primary weapon that they've bodged onto the side.
It's true.
A rotating drill, as opposed to a drill which just sits still.
The pioneer of drill spinners.
Ming Dynasty just sees this and thinks, yep, I need to try that.
That's a good idea 3 years later.
In Steve Merrill's own words, he says it's better than Sir Kilolot's. Well, he says it's the same weapon as Kilolot's, except better.
Yes. Which is some way to put it. But I can't say I disagree.
It does do some damage in this fight.
That's true,
which
actually.
is more than Kilolot
That's
manages
true.
to cause with the drill.
Yeah.
It faces another fiberglass lid. This time with Scorpion, and uses the drill to cut through it.
Yeah, and somehow Scorpion comes out of a fight with Reactor and Sir Chromalot, with punctured bodywork and flat tyres. Like, how do you take that much damage against those two?
And it loses the top of its scorpion tail in the iconic scene in the Robot Wars intro, and then catches fire.
Yeah, I don't know if that was an O of joy, or if it was an O of...
Oh, I've seen it all before.
Yeah.
You know, Rosie the Riveter versus Tut Tut, I've had enough.
Yeah.
Can't be bothered with this anymore. Get Humphrey off the flipper. Don't need to see it fly anymore.
But, this melee is very strange. I shouldn't say this publicly. I like it.
I just watched it, you know?
I think it's okay. It's ponderous.
Let me remind you that the Chromalot, by the way, is the 27th seed.
Exactly.
So they're supposed to be the one that you fear in this melee.
Yeah, and it was. Reactor got bullied. Scorpion got bullied by Sir Chromalot.
In the opening stages, I guess the Chromalot takes the lead, but Reactor gets the kill.
Yeah, after Scorpion was absolutely ruined by the drill spinner of Sir Chromalot, but you can try and give it a token win if you like.
Sir Chromalot, drill!
Yeah, so Jack, are you going to defend me or Toast on this fight?
Personally, it's not a very difficult decision, really. I've got to defend Toast. It wasn't a brilliant fight. The robots were just bumping around a lot until Scorpion was flipped, and then Jonathan Pierce just loses his mind and Reactor gets stuck under the spike. I don't know what that was all about, really, but well.
Yeah, it is what it is.
I don't know. I don't know what he's saying in the fight, to be honest.
But Sir Chromalot defies the expectations of Julia Reed, proving that the seed was not only a worthy thing to give it, but it also gives it the more polite second round draw. It manages to dodge Wild Thing and gets a much more tame second round matchup of the Steel Avenger.
Much more tame, and it gets absolutely bullied by the Steel Avenger still. Now, so this is a Sir Chromalot podcast, of course, and we've already covered its most convincing win, which ended up with it in the pit. This is one of the Steel Avenger's most convincing wins, and it misses with 3/4 of its axe attacks.
I mean, that's if you choose to believe the canon, because
that's true.
John Willoughby, captain of Steel Avenger, he is constantly editing his wiki page to rewrite the way his Series 4 battle works, and he always specifies that there's numerous axe blows that the Steel Avenger lands which get cut out of the televised broadcast. And maybe we'll delve into further detail in a Steel Avenger podcast.
Yes.
But just know that there's two ways you can view this battle. Sir Chromalot either gets dominated by a well-controlled, aggressive Steel Avenger, or it gets dominated by a Steel Avenger which misses with most of its attacks and still gets shepherded into the pit for the first pitting of the series since Wheelie Big Cheese put itself in there twice.
Yeah, you can tell how much was probably cut out from that fight then. If the pit had to come into play, Jesus Christ. Jack, another tremendous fight this, do you agree?
Quite clearly. I don't know how it missed your top 100 to be completely
Yeah, I mean, I think I did need a drill destruction fight there somewhere.
You know, if Mr. Speed Squared versus Heavy Metal is a Series 9 contender because it was the only pitting of the series, then this...
That's true.
Once we get rid of the Firestorm self-pitting and the Wheelie Big Cheese self-pitting, it's only Wild Thing and Steel Avenger that actually get any before Panic Attack's heat.
It's true.
And Dominator 2 gets one on an already immobile Shadow of Napalm.
Yeah, so it doesn't count, but this is a lovely pitting that still takes a while to actually complete.
But you know, Steel Avenger, it's got a triangular front whilst the Chromalot is a circle, so this should be a very challenging manoeuvre to pull off.
Yeah, but John Willoughby, the expert driver, with all of his multiple axe blows landed in this fight, just gets the coup de grace with a pitting that, Kim Davis himself would be proud of. Was he driving in this fight? Maybe. We'll never know unless John Willoughby edits the wiki to tell us.
John Willoughby edits his page to say that he beat Carbide, and who are we to discredit that? It's still fighting to this day. It beat Halo at an Extreme Robots event just this week.
Oh my god.
Now, you'd think that would be it for Chromalot in Series 4, but...
You'd hope it would be it.
But fortunately...
Yes, we'll go with that in quotation
they get
marks.
another episode, and that is, of course, the Celebrity Special, where indeed Sir Chromalot is represented by Shane Lynch of popular 90s boy band Boyzone to take on another 90s boy band of Five, prior to Five actually buying Robot Wars because they liked it so much.
Exactly.
They wanted to run their own series.
This was a good audition for them.
So before Series 7, the best series of all time, happens on Five,
Absolutely.
they get their first bit of experience using Disco Inferno to take on Shane Lynch. But before we get to the battle, the parallel between Shane Lynch and the Hubnuts is striking, to say the least.
Yeah, there was some interesting celebrity Roboteer combinations in this episode, and
yeah, like it makes sense to put the Turner sisters with a clusterbot. Chris Eubank with Killertron, at least it's a punching thing. Wild Thing, I couldn't even tell you anything about Andrea Shona Lowry.
Andrea Suarez.
That's it. Pussycat is in EastEnders because it never goes away.
Yeah.
So that's fitting. Iron Ore is in the hands of another EastEnders actress because it never works. And then we've got the boy bands. Five get a robot that just straight up doesn't work.
Yeah.
While Shane Lynch, the guy with nose piercings, a shaved head, red hair, is given just a circle with some very politely dressed formal people who are also accompanied by the cheerleaders that we didn't even mention.
Yeah, that's true.
That's a battle in and of itself. The cheerleaders enter the arena and they put up a good 2 minutes before they're immobilised in the centre of the arena.
We genuinely see more of them than half of Series 5's judges' decisions.
I think the Chromettes deserve a place in any fantasy tournament that you try to run.
You didn't need to emphasise the fantasy then. Oh dear, this is gonna...
At least it was filmed 18 years ago.
Yeah,
So the Chromettes, I'm sure they're capable of beating Yebo Robo.
Yeah.
But they weren't able to help Sir Chromalot in its quest, really. But it does get a win here.
Incredibly.
Over Disco Inferno. Talk us through the fight, Jack. A wonderful executive summary there of everything that happens in the fight. Yes, indeed. Disco Inferno drives into the wall. Sir Chromalot drives over the flame pit to molt off its chrome curtain that they've wrapped around the Shremek to intentionally make it so it couldn't self-right.
Yeah, that's quite...
After going to all that work of putting a Shremek on it, and then Disco Inferno literally just dies.
I think it was a big missed opportunity with this being a Christmas special not to make it look like a Christmas tree.
Put some baubles on the arms.
Imagine
I mean, might as well.
if they made Killatron black, they could make the Chromalot green. God.
Put some tinsel on it, lads, come on.
Yeah, where's the effort put in there? That's a mighty shame.
Yeah, people always talk about Killatron's alternative paint job and they refer to the orange in Series 2, but no, don't forget the black one.
Exactly.
From Series 4. But yeah, so like, Disco Inferno dies, so Chromalot gets to push it onto the evil ejector.
That's the one, the famous evil ejector.
And that's it, it's through. Again, it always makes it past round 1 somehow.
And if Sir Chromalot winning this fight wasn't bad enough, just to compound the misery for Disco Inferno in Series 4, it lost in its debut series by knockout to all 3 of Sir Chromalot, Major Tom, and Shadow of Napar.
Can't wait for the Disco Inferno podcast.
This thing won something! And it lost to these 3 just a series earlier. I have no words. So, with no further words, we will move on to the hard-earned...
The other Annihilator champion from Extreme. Pussycat, with its EastEnders team, gets to take on Shane Lynch's Sir Chromalot, and it doesn't have to do a lot. The spinner is working on Pussycat, having not worked in the first round, and Sir Chromalot's mighty drill that was already bent in the Sir Chromalot fight, Steel Avenger fight, resigning it to a waggler. The drill is just completely sliced off by Pussycat, and then it cuts through the armour until Sir Chromalot is stuck on the flame pit. Sorry, the Flames of Fury,
That's the one.
as they are in this episode.
Well done, you remembered it. Good stuff.
And it never moves again. But, slight moment of contention, I wouldn't say it's 100% confirmed that Sir Chromalot was immobile. It's very possible that they were stuck on the grill!
Yeah, exactly.
And in order to be freed from the grill, it took Sir Killalot to pick them off. And because it took so long for the house robots to actually remove it, Shane Lynch has just dropped the controller.
He's given up. He thinks it's gone.
His hands are in the air, leaning on the glass, putting fingerprints all over it.
Oh.
He's not even trying to control Sir Chromalot, despite the fact it's broken free. It could still be mobile now that it's been freed, but he's just not even giving it a go. All credit to him for not passing the controls over to the actual Roboteers like most of the celebrities did. But, yeah, it gets a moment to move, but only when it's placed on the floor flipper and lands on its side again does he actually try to control the robot again. But at least it does get a chance to try and show the Shremek. Not while it's actually flipped over like it would make sense to do, but at least it does open them up while it's on the flame pit. Then the house robots put it out of its misery, drop it into the pit, but at least it took the eventual champion to knock it out.
Yes, we'll go with that. So,
Oh, and it was nominated for the Sportsmanship Award, but Dietor won it again.
Yeah, as you'd expect. So, that ends an absolutely stellar Sir Chromalot campaign.
At least they arrived on a Scarvia truck.
Yep.
With the newspapers as well.
Yeah, Series 4 has some really nice little intro scenes for robots, just as they had their melees introduced. The Plunderbird one on the helicopter. This one. It's really
They
nice
also
little
get their
touches.
chance in Extreme 1
Yes,
to
they
arrive
do.
in a different way. They only get, would you believe, 2 fights in the whole of Extreme, which I find really hard to believe because they were such a prominent part of it by being in a main event of Extreme, which was their first fight against Plunderbird 5. I believe they've arrived in the black car.
Yes.
And they want to prove that they are the best singers. No, that's the Megamorg one. That's number 2. They want to show that they are the best showmen in Robot Wars. And, you know, it's a genuine matter of controversy.
True,
Let's take a moment to think.
Yeah.
Who did we prefer out of the International Rec Crew and the Hobnuts as sportsmen and entertainers?
That's a really good question, you know. I am not too sure. I think I'd rewatch the Plunderbird guys more, but yeah, the Chromalot guys feel that bit more. I don't know how to describe it, but they do complement each other really well.
Yeah, especially when Ray Tate gets involved.
Exactly.
Who,
Just a little
and he is
finishing
here for
bodyguard
Extreme
touches.
1 now, because finally Sir Chromalot actually has a weapon, the pneumatic flipping arm, which Ray Tate designed. It's also got word art on there, as though it was Stegtuosaurus, but we'll overlook that. And yeah, I mean, in the Battle of the Showmen, I would say it depends what your sense of humour is, because the Plunderbird style is very in-your-face and funny, which I like, while the Sir Chromalot style is more subtle. It's still not subtle, but it's more subtle.
Absolutely.
They'll just slip in their jokes rather than planning it in advance, you could say. And the costumes just adds another layer. My favourite thing about the Hobnuts' humour is that they are the only team or robot to ever pick a fight with Jonathan Pierce. A force which isn't even present at filming, they managed to find a fight with. Which probably stems from Series 4 when he was picking on their weapon and calling it useless. So they come to Extreme with a grudge to settle against this man only, after they, of course, fight Plunderbird 5. So we'll talk about the battle for a bit, shall we?
I think we should first get Jack's opinion. Who does he prefer as well? It's a good...
I think there are very good points made between both. I think they do complement each other very well, and it's it depends on what your humour is, like you said. I mean, I wouldn't want one without the other, really.
I think watching Series 2 Heat K this morning, International Rec Crew do like to say the word violence a lot.
They do.
I think I'm leaning towards Sir Chromalot's team on this one, actually. Just because of the Jonathan Pierce rivalry more than anything.
That is potentially a key play there. So yeah, I think Sir Chromalot podcast especially will give them the benefit of the doubt. But it's a really good rivalry. It's up there with the really biggest ones in the show's history, for sure.
And funnily enough, after we've agreed that maybe Sir Chromalot wins, in our opinion, on the showmanship, they also win the battle against Plunderbird 5. It's tentative stuff.
Yeah. Extreme had some really awkward fights between these notable yet such average machines. It's this little four of Ming 3, Sir Chromalot, Plunderbird 5, and
Common Getorix
and Megamorg. So there's like 5 really, but they all seem to just fight each other at one point, and their fights draw out.
It's because Ming was trying to learn how to make a drill from
Yes.
Sir Chromalot. Learn from the master.
Nothing happens, yet everything happens. And this fight really does perfectly sum that up, because it's basically just Plunderbird somehow getting beached on top of Sir Chromalot for about however long, 30 seconds.
Yeah, for me it's one of those fights which I misremembered for a long time. I always remembered it as Plunderbird dominating the fight, before, as we see, it just drives onto the lip of the pit and defeats itself. That's not really the case. Sir Chromalot gets one lift,
and then they're just stuck.
And they get stuck together as a result. Plunderbird has a charge where the Crusher is making contact with Sir Chromalot, but not really doing anything or pushing the robot. I think Plunderbird's front wedge is flipped away by Sir Chromalot. So if anything, on damage, Sir Chromalot is actually winning the fight throughout. But it's close. And then, in the end, they just draw Plunderbird onto the pit. That's the end. Sir Chromalot show that they are the better showman, and then utterly 180 on it and show that they're not the greatest showman by letting Plunderbird sing out the show instead.
Oh boy. And boy did they.
And then when Plunderbird actually has a fight with Megamorg to prove who's the better singer, and they get their chance to do it again, they've kind of already climaxed.
Yeah.
And they just bust it out a cappella for a couple of lines, and it's not nearly as good.
No.
So they should have swapped the fights around, basically.
I agree.
Now, speaking of switching things around, then.
Or binning it off altogether. Yeah.
Yeah, so Chromalot gets one more fight in Extreme, and we've mentioned they go 1-1 in Series 3, they go 1-1 in Series 4's main competition, and 1-1 in the Celebrity Special. In Extreme, they've got their win in the Vengeance.
So you know what's next.
So the loss has to be coming. It's the Tag Team Terror.
Jack, we have talked about this competition on basically every podcast, I swear. What's your opinion on the Robot Wars Extreme Tag Team Terror competition as a whole?
I felt it was vastly inferior to the Extreme 2 Tag Team Terror.
Hey, we'll get to that later on.
We're not here to talk about that. Yeah, I really didn't think it was very memorable. I don't think it's got much rewatchability factor at all.
This is much more polite than I expected, by the way, Jack. You're welcome to rip into it.
Yeah, it just wasn't very good, was it? Let's be honest.
Yeah, there is a good point there about not much memorability, because it should be. The lineup in the tag team has so much potential for laughs and fun.
We've got Thermidor, we've got Chromalot.
Napalm.
So dangerous we keep him in a cage.
Yeah, the 101 and King B guys.
Yeah,
together.
Pussycat joins in later on. Dietor's there.
Yeah.
It should be pretty good.
But even when we have...
Although, there is one obvious team which was never going to do well, and that's this one. So Chromalot, we've seen some really bad tag teams in the past, like Scorpion and Invertebrat got involved, but at least they had decent teammates.
Oh.
Sir Chromalot and Napalm is an utterly irredeemable partnership.
Is it the worst ever?
Mighty Mouse and Velociraptor might have something to say about it.
I think
probably,
that does take
yeah.
a biscuit, yeah. But... Oh man,
Dietor and D.
This fight... This fight is the definition of a blur. I swear nothing happens, but then Napalm gets dumped out the arena.
Luckily, I rewatched this fight while you were on the bog for like 15 minutes, and I, funnily enough, got to see that Sir Chromalot is one of the few tag team combatants to actually play this completely by the rules.
Oh, really?
So Napalm comes out first and gets dominated by the Steel Avenger in a rematch of the ages, Thor versus Mr. Speed Squared. Before that had even happened, so Chromalot is actually rematching the Steel Avenger. But yeah, Napalm gets twisted up by Steel Avenger, but it's still moving and it's not tagging Sir Chromalot. So Suicidal Tendencies switches in to also have its share of beating up poor old Napalm. So Chromalot is just sitting and watching because they haven't been tagged, so they play by the rules. Jonathan Pierce can't have a go at them here.
Well, yeah, I mean, for all of the criticism that loads of the showmanship teams get on Robot Wars, you know, the Chromalot guys are always very sporting, and they prove it again here. So
yeah, and so they genuinely don't even enter the fight until Napalm has already been dropped out of the arena. It's at no point tagged. It literally has to see its teammates sent home before they can enter. And they get one lift on Steel Avenger, which I guess is more than they did last time. But then they just suddenly grind to a halt, having done very, very little. And then, after having played this match completely by the rules, yes, Suicidal Tendencies and Steel Avenger just kind of double team it. It's kind of unfair. Their patience was rewarded with nothing, and eventually they're dumped in the pit by Sir Chromalot without even being counted out because they were just dead.
Yeah.
I think we should move on from the Tag Team Terror already. That was enough time, wasn't it, Jack?
Poor old Chromie. So, now though, Series 5 isn't much better for Sir Chromalot quality of fights.
No, it's straight up worse.
Yeah, everybody knows about how poor some of Series 5's first round fights are. Here's an example.
Probably the most pertinent example of them all.
Yeah.
How do you let Sir Chromalot win a fight and have it be the dullest encounter in the heat?
Yeah, and Roadhog drives into the angle grinder after 10 seconds, and what just makes this fight feel even more throwaway somehow is that they don't even wait to see if Roadhog can free itself. The edit doesn't show anything bar bumps in the wall. Literally 1 second later, it's being counted out. It's like 8, 9, 10, bang, Roadhog's gone in 3 seconds, and it's just hilariously throwaway. It's amazing.
That's all that Roadhog deserved.
Sorry?
That's all that Roadhog deserved, to be honest. It wasn't really worth...
Including in the series, yes, M2 is watching, Barbaric Response is watching, Vader is watching, Chip is watching, Chromalot is watching, etc, etc. But at least the Chromalot, after having already won the fight through no involvement of its own, shows how poor Roadhog's armour is by spearing its flipper through the shell of Roadhog, doing more damage than the spike and the drill ever did in that form. They lift it up by its petard, just lifting up the robot by being speared inside of it, and then they back off and watch some house robot carnage because they're through to the next round. And thank God they were, because one of the main problems with Series 5 is the fact that teams don't get to speak unless they go to a judge's decision in round 1 or they make round 2. So if Sir Chromalot was just defeated in the first round, we would not have even heard a word from Ray Tate and Steve Merrill. But at least they get to hear, they're in round 2 again for another 1-1 campaign. They get to talk the talk against one of the least comical teams in Robot Wars that didn't really have much to say in response.
Yeah, to call Graham Bone straight to the point and methodical would be trying to explain it, but you know, there's a good bit of laughs in the pits beforehand. Steve Merrill making a bit of a suggestion of what Graham and Hazel could be doing up in the team booths while Alex Mordew takes the reins in more ways than one. But yeah, unfortunately the banter in the pits lasts longer than the fight.
Yeah, this is something we went over in a lot of detail in the Firestorm podcast itself, because while we like the positive aspects about Firestorm and we can totally see why it would have a big fan base, the thing that annoys us the most about it is when they would take a robot which is clearly there for fun, like Sir Chromalot, very much an uncompetitive design, and give it the one flip done treatment. And just, why would you do that to Sir Chromalot of all machines? You're not going to lose this one, Firestorm.
Yeah.
Give it a bit of a fight, but no.
I mean, I'll try and give them a little bit of a pass here, because why has Sir Chromalot got that flag on? Like, that's never going to help itself, right? So, some of the blame is there, but yeah, it's just really sad. Like, this is a round 1 fight. In round 2, in a heat where we've already had a bad round 1 fight or 2, so from both of these machines, so it just gets multiplied by more here. And
it just makes the entire heat one of the weakest of all time. It made Reactor 2 versus Gemini feel like a top 100 fight, just because it stood out so much as a competent battle. Even Steve Merrill doesn't really have much to say for himself after that fight, because he literally didn't even get to play.
Yeah.
He entered the arena and then promptly left it. That's the end of his Series 5 campaign.
Unfortunately so. But we've had a good 3 really bad battles in a row. I'll give the Plunderbird one a little bit of leeway. Thankfully, as we get to the twilight of Sir Chromalot's Robot Wars career, it ends with a trail of 3 amazing fights, starting with an all-time classic melee of
Sir Chromalot versus Shunt before the battle starts.
Yes, that notably. Yeah, it has 4 great fights in a row.
Yeah,
there we go.
it has more
And Sir
more of a
Chromalot's on
battle.
the run. It's piggyback time.
It has more of a battle with Shunt before its Series 6 melee than it does with Firestorm 3 in the last wars.
That's actually true.
They do indeed get to enter the arena for one of the most highly regarded melees of all time against ICU, the Alien, and GBH2. We've finally got a good fight to talk about, eh, lads?
We have. So, I think, because we've subjected Jack on his debut to be in this podcast, mate, do you want to wax lyrical about this fight? Take it away.
Yeah, it was a great fight. I mean, everybody seems to get involved with everybody. One thing I seem to remember notably was that correct me if I'm wrong, but I think everybody was flipped and everybody self-righted in this fight. I know that's not a criteria you should go off.
I think that's right.
Yeah, well, ICU doesn't self-right, but it is flipped.
It does against the arena wall, doesn't it? With its sidebars. I'm pretty sure when it gets pushed into the pit, released by GBH2, I think it pushes itself off again. I think that's right.
Well, then, you would be absolutely right.
I think that is right. Because the Alien gets flipped by Sir Chromalot, GBH flips Sir Chromalot, Sir Chromalot flips GBH, the Alien flips GBH.
Sir Chromalot gets the knockout flip on ICU.
Yeah. So,
most importantly.
So yeah, but it's always been, although Sir Chromalot progressed from this fight, it's always been one of the more melees open for debate, shall we say, over the loss of potential with GBH2 not making it through. And it's an interesting one because recently I started this blog on the wiki. Not going to go into too much depth about it with a shameless promo.
But there is a link in the description.
But there's a link in the description. And it's basically going over fights and scoring them. And after a little bit of confusion, I did.
And when you say scoring them, you mean on a judging criteria, not
exactly.
on entertainment
not
value
on,
or anything.
Not on, oh, that robot looks quite shiny, let's put it through out of 10.
Like Black Hole versus Zeus, that's an 8 out of 10.
Yeah, we'll go with that. But yeah, story short, I did end up putting Sir Chromalot through in this fight after a little bit of intervention maybe on damage because of the KO blow on ICU. But it really is an interesting fight because GBH looks the more busy and the more aggressive in general, but when you look at it in detail, boy, GBH is erroneously controlled in general anyway. But if you look at it closely, it even gets itself near the pit a second time after the one that's a bit more obvious. And it even gets itself stuck under the angle grinder for a good 10 seconds towards the end stage of the fight. So, Sir Chromalot's not exactly boisterous, but it ticks along, and it does edge its way through, whether that was right or wrong.
I think the main thing that helped it was it getting the only KO of the match on ICU, which we believe translates to damage points, where only the Alien could otherwise score any, which works against GBH. It's the other matter of controversy, which even applied to the judges themselves, because this was a 2-1 split decision. But back in the days of Robot Wars and BattleBots being off-air, this was one of the only instances we had of a robot being dead at the end of a fight, but it still won. So Chromalot was flipped in the CPZ, and it wasn't counted out, and fair play to them. Maybe they would have been able to self-right. We can't prove that they couldn't, but they were seemingly dead at the end of the fight and still won. But nowadays, I don't feel like that would really be brought up as much anymore. No. Now that we're in days where Overhaul can die against Chomp and still win, or Hypershock can go to a split decision with Scorpios while sitting on its arse upside down, having been flipped over, etc., etc. At the time, it was a matter of controversy, especially because some people thought, for example, 259 should have beaten Wild Thing despite being dead. I disagree, because 259 was dead for a lot longer and Wild Thing actually caused damage to it, but that's an aside. So Chromalot, I can totally understand why some people would think GBH was a bit robbed here, but I wouldn't trade Sir Chromalot's place in the second round of one of the best episodes of all time. Nah, I'm happy that Sir Chromalot went through, and it is defensible.
Yeah.
Yes, GBH2 should have been invited to appear in Extreme at least, but that's an unrelated issue, and even if GBH could have gone through to fight S3, I don't think that would have gone too much better, to be honest, so I'll take the Chromalot going through.
I think people kind of misremember it because GBH looked like such a competent robot as well.
Yeah, like visually, it just looks complete, doesn't it? A couple of weapons in good areas of the machine, technically a wedge, fast, aesthetically nice.
One loser.
Yeah, exactly. So it's always going to get that sympathy as well that there's potential there, and there was, but yeah, shouldn't take anything away from Sir Chromalot here. It did decently enough, and as Toast hinted at, instead of GBH fighting S3, it was the class act that get outclassed here. Oh.
But I'd love that before the fight, they're beyond the point of addressing their opponent. Steve Merrill's gag this year, apart from picking on Jonathan Pierce, is that he's just too bothered about his costumes. He's constantly changing. The actual interview itself, Philippa asked him, "Have you ever looked at your robot lately?" And he just says, "Have you seen this jacket? I've got the gold one on now. Do you like the gold jacket? Are you worried about S3? No, who are S3? It just carries on like that.
I think that is another... Again, it's on that Plunderburst Sir Chromalot thing. I think, the Sir Chromalot guys probably do have that little bit more versatility in their humour. Because
and it's another subtle one. Just a quick, who are
exactly.
S3?
Exactly, it's another one you just kind of forget about. But then when it comes on the screen, you just laugh again like it's the first time. Because it's just so pure and Steve Merrily. It's great.
And also, the way they actually fight in this battle is hilarious. Now, I don't know how many of you viewers have played a side mode in Robot Wars Extreme Destruction called the Endurance Battle, but it's a mode where you have to fight 7 robots in sequence, the last of them being in a house robot, and they just gradually enter the arena, and by all means, it shouldn't be possible to win.
Yeah.
However, this is a game released in 2002 or 2001 kind of time. AI wasn't the best. You could just park behind the pit and let the other robots drive into it. And that's exactly what Sir Chromalot tries to do with the admittedly unwieldy and very pitiable S3.
Yeah.
I genuinely don't blame them. This was probably better than actually trying to fight it properly. S3 might have driven onto the side, and Sir Chromalot might have won the exploding wooden clock, which is the prize you get for winning endurance, if you weren't aware.
But yeah, I mean, S3 does come close to the pit a couple of times, so you understand, but it's just really funny the way that you can tell that S3's getting wound up by all of these jokes, and it just comes in with 2 really big hits to just absolutely wreck the protective truck wheel hub layer, shall we call
We'll
it
give
now.
them a bit of credit. They've actually made it so the robot can self-right now, and
Yeah.
they did it in the last round, and they do it here again after the first hit from S3. We get some classic Jonathan Pierce 13 Black versus Dominator 2 commentary. Oh no, he's nearly got in the pit! But yeah, there's only really one place for them to go, and Dead Metal puts them in there after they are flipped over by S3's killer hit.
Oh.
In fact, it's not even flipped over, it's just straight up immobilised by it.
Absolutely.
And Dead Metal pops the Chromalot in the pit and falls in behind it.
Did he do that in Series 5 as well, with Sir Chromalot?
Probably, yeah.
Because he did it with Gemini in the same heat. He didn't do it with Sir Chromalot twice, did he, the Nugget? I think he might have.
Surely not.
Oh,
Well,
no.
with Firestorm versus Sir Chromalot being so short, I'm sure the viewers saw the whole thing on screen anyway, so we won't dwell on that. Sir Chromalot is out of Series 6 with yet another 1-1 record. Surely that means that when they enter Extreme 2 in a fight against Hypnodisc, Smithy and Dantong here, they're gonna pull it off again, right? No, they don't. They finally ruin the streak, and yeah, Sir Chromalot, they just enter this fight looking the worst they've ever appeared. They've put hazard stripes around the outside, They've put chains on top of the robot.
The flag's back.
Even the camera shoots it from directly above, so you can't make out the shape of the robot. And rightfully, they keep away from Hypnodisc until it's ooted, so they don't get last place. But that's all you can really say about them.
Yeah, I think that is pretty much all that. What are you about to say, Jack?
I was just saying, it's a bit of a sad time, really. It's a bit like, seeing all the chains on it and everything.
Yeah, it just feels like that random guy going through his midlife crisis, just trying to find his identity again when he knows it's just all gone.
Look at that entanglement device! It's designed to destroy the Hypnodisc!
That's true.
It could genuinely be the idea. That might have been what they were going
but
for.
they were just playing it off as a bit of a joke, yeah. Steve Merrill with his cunning tactics again. Two fights in a row.
Dietor did have intentional slits in its fur for the tornado fight. They actually wanted to entangle it. It could be the truth. But yeah, Dan Tonke just flips it a bit and eventually puts it on its back in a CPZ.
Oh.
And Matilda twats it out the arena with her ass in what is a wonderful way to end the fight.
Yeah, and Matilda doing 2 of those in 2 fights in the challenge belt.
Yeah, and that's the second Uta within that fight itself, of apparently 3, if Mike Lambert is to be believed. He did claim he flipped Smidsy out of the arena in an attack edited out of the fight.
And yeah, I can believe him, because when the battle is called at cease, they are still fighting. There's no showing of the robot slowing down or coming to a stop. They just
in fact, Dan Tonke is under Smidsy
exactly.
when the fight ends. So yeah, it's believable. But finally, Sir Chromalot's televised campaign comes to an end. They didn't make it to round 2.
Imagine them in round 2 of the challenge belt.
So they would have been taking on Terahertz. Oh, I think I'll pass on that one. Or they might get lucky and get iron ore. Which was
getting ooted.
But although that's the end of Sir Chromalot in Robot Wars, I think we do need to give a passing mention to the fact they did want to be in Series 7. And not only that, they made a brand new machine for it. They finally abandoned the American wheel hub.
They did.
To go with an invertible design, much in the shape of Cobra from Series 7. Not the best comparison in terms of complement.
Yes.
But they had some vertical grinding discs at the front. It looked competent, but it fought Scorpion in its qualifier, and that is a deadly disc, and they apparently had to get swept out of the arena with a broom. It didn't sound polite. I don't know what... There's one thing, Firestorm overturning Sir Chromalot and leaving it for dead, but ripping apart the new Sir Chromalot in an untelevised qualifier, yeesh, Scorpion.
Yeah.
There's no doubt in my mind that Sir Chromalot would have been offered a place in the series. I imagine it just wasn't ready to compete. What they needed to do was give it the 15th seed in place of Ming Dynasty. And then it could have been straight through.
You can tell Scorpion harboured a severe hatred from that absolute demolition job in Series 4 that Sir Chromalot gave it.
Oh god, that's a vengeance match!
Yeah!
Just like the Steel Avenger rematch. So yep, Scorpion was defeated by the seeded Sir Chromalot. They certainly got their revenge to the benefit of nobody.
No, exactly.
But that's the end. At least Ray Tate is still attending events with Skeletor, the climbing robot, to this day. We won't go over Centurion. Ray Tate, he's still representing Sir Chromalot to this day. Obviously, Steve Merrill cannot, but he sure left a legacy with his wonderful robot and his wonderful team.
Yeah, really.
Most of his fights were terrible. But most of his interviews were 100 emoji double underlined.
Pretty much. He's a wonderful, wonderful character. And despite some of the really bad fights, they do have a few excellent ones in there as well. It's a really nice sprinkling of the bizarre and the brilliant. So, yeah. There's...
And I
don't think it could have ended in a better way either.
No, absolutely. In terms of televised fights, yeah.
Yeah, so in terms of best ways to end off the podcast, I think we've got to close this out with the last line that Steve Merrill ever delivered on TV after losing to Dan Tonke and Smidsy. They do fantastic dinners here.
Yeah, Steve Merrill's the saving grace of Philippa in Extreme 2, isn't he?
Right, well then, I've been Tale of the Toaster with good old buddy Nick, and say ta-ra for us, Jack.
Ta-ra.